There you are.
Hello. Sorry.
No problem. How are
I
you
have this.
today?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing great. Uh, how was your How was your weekend?
Well, I took some time for rest because I was convalescent for my gastroenteritis. So I I rest, I take it easy. Mm, I saw a lot of movies and
Which what movies did you
take
watch?
a lot of yeah. I saw this movie. It's called "Call Me by Your Name." Call me, call me by your name.
Call Me by Your
And
Name.
call me,
Call Me
call
by
me by your name.
is
By
is
your
that
name.
is that a Mexican movie?
No, it's an independent movie. Timothy Chalamet, I think that's the name of the main actor. Um, was nominated for this movie
Really?
like 2 years ago for the Oscars. Yes.
I'm
And
not great at keeping
it
up with stuff like that, but I do know who Timothy
it was,
Chalamet is.
yeah, it was a great movie. It's like a um, 80s ambiented movie, and the music was awesome.
Right.
and it's okay, it's okay. So I got rest, and I feel right now. I feel a lot better
Is the only
because
time
I
that
need to
you
rest.
let yourself rest like that is when you get sick?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You probably would not get sick as often if you rested more frequently, right? I'm giving
Yeah.
medical advice to a doctor right now. That's what I'm doing. Get more rest, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to.
Sleep
Yeah.
is important. Mm. I took melatonin a few nights ago, and
Yes. And we
I
don't.
could I could not wake up in the morning. It lingered. I was sleepy for like normally I jump out of bed in the morning, but I found that I couldn't wake up for like an hour or two after that. I don't know if it's related or maybe I was just tired. Not sure.
Sometimes your body just asks you a little break because we don't pay attention for the signs of exhaustion. I don't know.
Exhaustion.
Maybe exhaustion. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that's it. I'm sure that's it. Yeah. Also, that it's so hot here that sometimes I think maybe just the heat makes me lazy. Uh, so could be that as well. Uh, all right.
Yeah, the heat is exhausting.
Yeah. The heat of the right. All right. Let's get started. Right. I want to
Right.
do a little same structure as last time in this lesson. I'm going to do a little um, work on pronunciation, and then we're going to do uh, some practicing with answering COVID related questions. And I'm going to try to paraphrase what you say and give it back to you. Today will
Okay.
probably be the last time that we do this specific sort of structure of a class, but I want to do it one more time just to make sure that
It's
you're
okay for me.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
So we will start with pronunciation. Now, this is the pronunciation of T and D sounds. You are inconsistent with these sounds. So this is not necessarily something that I would bring up as an issue in understanding your English, but occasionally I can hear variations. So again, it's just good to spell it out directly into words and put it in your awareness so that you know to pay attention to it. Okay. So I'm
Okay.
gonna just read to you here how to pronounce the T and D sounds. The voiceless or unvoiced T sound can be found in English words such as it, got, hat, toy, top, late, and butter. It is important to note that there are a few different ways to make the T sound. In this lesson, we study the true T sound. This is the most common way to make the T sound. There's also the voiced D sound, can be found in English words such as dad, do, did, sad, said, and made. Voiced and voiceless sounds. In the English language, we use many voice sounds. That means that the vocal cords vibrate when you say that sound. The D sound is a voice sound because the vocal cords vibrate when you make the sound. The T sound is a voiceless or unvoiced sound because the vocal cords do not vibrate when you make the sound. Instead, we use a puff of air to make the sound. Stop consonants. T and D sounds should be studied together because they are both stop consonants made in the same part of the mouth. Stop consonants are made when the flow of air through your mouth is stopped by either your tongue or lips. This causes a buildup of air. When the air is released, it makes a small explosive sound. To make the T and D sounds, your tongue stops the flow of air at the front of your mouth. In both of these sounds, the tip of your tongue presses against the back of your top teeth. The sides of your tongue will also press against the upper side teeth to stop the flow of air. There is more air released for the T sound and less air released for the D sound. Okay, we can skip the other consonant sounds. Okay. The T and D sounds are very similar. It's easiest to learn the differences between these two sounds by watching and hearing someone say them. So let's practice the voiced D sound first. Practice the voiced D sounds by saying these words. Hold a piece of paper. We're not going to worry about all that. Let's just practice the sound. So I'm going to say the word and then you repeat the word after me. Okay.
Okay.
Dad.
Dad. Dad.
Do.
Do.
Did.
Did.
Dog.
Dog.
Mad.
Mad.
Sad.
Sad.
Bad.
Bad.
Done.
Done.
Loud.
Loud.
And. Great. You did great. All right. Now we're practicing the voiceless T sound. Two.
Two.
Top.
Two.
There you go. That's it. Top.
Top.
It.
It.
Get.
Get.
Hot.
Hot.
Pot.
Pot.
Two.
Two. Later.
What?
What?
Challenge words. Now we're putting the sounds together. These words have both sounds. Practice them slowly. The T sounds are in blue. The D sounds are in green. Today,
Today.
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Saturday,
Saturday.
dot,
Dot.
tried,
Tried.
diet,
Diet.
diet,
Diet.
date,
Date.
wanted.
Wanted.
Sounds good. All right. Now I'm going to let you go first. You read the sentence and then I will repeat the sentence back to you.
Right. Get down.
Get it down.
Get it down.
Yeah, perfect.
Get okay.
It,
It
oh,
what?
sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
I was getting ahead of myself.
It was hot today.
It was hot today.
It was hot today.
Number 3.
What did it okay, what did she do at the top? What did she do? Okay, I hear you now. I hear you. What did you do at the top? What did she do? What did she do at the top?
What did she do at the top?
What did she do at the top?
Number 4.
Okay. Did it stop at the bottom? Did it stop at the bottom?
Did it stop at the bottom?
Dan and Tina had a date on Tuesday.
Perfect. Dan and Tina had a date on Tuesday. That was excellent. No problems. All right. Yeah, so that was a bit easier than the TH sound and the Y sound that we've done previously. And you, like I said, you're mostly consistent with that sound. The TH sound and the Y sound are more problematic for you than the TD sound, but occasionally it's unclear. So I just wanted to emphasize. All right. So
Right.
we moved quickly through that one. Let's get to, I'm going to ask you some more COVID questions. All right. Again,
Yeah.
consider these questions in isolation. So these questions are, they're could be somewhat similar to other questions that I've asked. So every question is from a new person in a new audience that has no prior explanation from you. Okay.
Okay. Ready.
All right. What is known about exposure risk in different settings, such as bars or movie theaters? Exposure risk in bars and theaters. What do we know?
Okay. Well, in these different scenarios, we have to establish what kind of venue we're talking about, because maybe you are talking about an auto cinema, and in this, or maybe on an open restaurant, and in this context, the risk is very low, because you have an ventilated environment, and you can even you are you are safe even without your mask, your face mask, without your face mask. Sorry.
Yes.
And in the other hand, when you spend your time in a closed space, the virus can float for a couple of hours, and your risk is higher in this context. So both scenarios need to be assessed for establish your risk for transmission. And well, the more type or the kind of venue, you have to see the I don't know how to say, the characteristics of the I don't know, the characteristics of the building, like it has windows, it has a big open door. These windows are open or don't, or aren't open, and is it an open space? Is it a closed space with no ventilation? This is the kind of stuff you have to see to determine this risk.
That was great. That was great. So I really liked how you corrected your Y pronunciation there. You caught yourself and corrected. That was great. That was perfect.
I try.
No, that's the habit. That's the habit that we're trying to form, right? Is that you're self-correcting and then forming new habits, and that's perfect. So I think in this case, you might have been sort of, and this is a tendency that you sometimes have, but not always, is that you were sort of overthinking it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you know the answer to this question, right? You don't need to overthink it, but you did answer it. But as you sort of, in a one-on-one conversation, people will have more patience for you to organize your thoughts as you're thinking. And when you're speaking with an audience, people have shorter attention spans, right? Yeah. It's easier for them to, look at their phone for a quick dopamine release than it is to pay attention to you as you organize your thoughts, right? And you know the answer to this question because it's very similar to what was the other? I asked you before.
The other one. Yes.
Yeah. What is the risk of taking your mask off in a restaurant or a bar to take a sip or a bite, right?
That's very similar.
And it's very similar. And so the answer can be very similar as well, right? This is, like I talked to, we discussed having sort of rehearsed the words that you can use in expectation of questions that you can get. This is a perfect example of that, right? So you gave me the same information. It just took a little while to get it out, and it had a sort of staggered effect So it was a little bit slower. But basically what you said was you need to consider where you are in terms of risk factors. If you're outside, if it's an outdoor theater or an outdoor restaurant, then the risk factors are lower because the virus is in the air. And so if you're outside, because there's ventilation, obviously in the open air, there's less risk. If you're inside, then you need to consider what the ventilation is like. Are there open windows? Is there a fan blowing? Is there fresh air in the room? Or is the room stuffy? And are you rebreathing uncirculated air, unfiltered air? In which case the risk of catching the virus is higher. I didn't hear you mention the space between people and the droplets, but that wasn't necessarily specific to this question, but wouldn't hurt to include that information as well. Repeating yourself is not something to be afraid of, particularly because, you know, people hear things without, some people listen without hearing. And, you know, repeating key points is useful in certain. I had a teacher tell me one time, if I say it twice, I know you'll remember it. If I say it to you twice, I know that you'll remember. And just like that, he said it twice, and I'll never forget that moment, like, because if you say it twice, it's emphasized, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So that's just an aside. But great job with your self-correction with the why. That was really good.
You know, I realize that I have a hard time connecting ideas. Like maybe I have to study like connectors. I don't know how to say that, like kind of adverbs. I don't know. I have to improve the connection between sentences,
Okay.
because yeah, I realize that right now with this exercise.
Well, no problem. That's an easy one, and I'll put that in our next lesson, no problem.
Okay.
Also,
Yeah.
I noticed it in your answer just now that your pronunciation of the final ed when you're using past tense, your pronunciation is inconsistent with that sound as well. So we will look at that at the beginning of our next class as well. But let's not focus on that one too much today, because I've already spent some time focusing on the TD, and I don't want to muddle things, make things confusing for you. Let's do one step at a time. We have plenty of time. Okay. How can one further reduce the risk of getting COVID from everyday activities? So I've got everyday activities ahead of me. How can I reduce my risk?
Well, first of all, you have to get vaccinated, because this is the first action to protect yourself from the disease. And you have to improve your general health, in a holistic way, because you have to be your high immune system prepared for battle with every kind of bacteria, viruses, etc., and so on. So, and I think the third step is using as using cover your nose and your mouth with a mask in crowded spaces, closed spaces with uh, bad ventilation. This is the third step for your for protecting yourself every day in your routine, in your daily activities. You have to carry on your face mask. I don't know why I can pronounce that word very very well, but okay, you have to carry your face mask in your bag and in your pant bag, and I don't know, it becomes a must for your daily routine to use the face mask in this kind of risky environments, like like I already said, crowded or closed spaces. So this is my advice.
That was a great answer. I
Yeah.
liked how
Mhm.
you went directly towards answering the question by saying, get vaccinated, right? I mean, that was very clear and direct. Came right at the beginning, and it was, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to get vaccinated, right? Um, impossible to miss that detail, which is perfect. And then you were talking about, making judgments based on your common sense, on your, if you're in a crowded situation, put on a face mask, right? If you're indoors in a crowded situation, wearing a face mask is better than not wearing a face mask, right? Um, which is also easy to understand. So that was great. Really clear answer.
And take care of your health.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
that's I'm that's an interesting part of this conversation as well, too, right? So, diet and exercise
Yeah.
is rarely discussed in the general conversation about COVID. Most of the conversation is focused on getting vaccinated for good reason, because being vaccinated protects you from the most serious effects of the illness. But diet and exercise are not as frequently discussed, even though they affect every aspect of who is getting sick and how sick they're getting and who is dying. So I did want to touch onto that with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the sleep, exercise, and diet
Okay.
are three of the most important aspects to combat any disease, not only infectious ones, even though the to prevent the chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart diseases and
It's chronic.
obesity. So
What is chronic?
chronic in okay, I have to explain that. Chronic means every process or illness that lasts for a very long time. It can be more than 3 weeks, but it can last for a lifetime. And so chronic is the name we give to the long and debilitating diseases, that the long months or years even. Or even months, sorry. Even months or years. Mhm.
Great. So yeah. So if you use a term that your audience might not understand, it's good to describe
Yes,
it, right?
I have to explain it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Which leads me to my next question. How do you assess community risk? I mean, when we're talking about a given community, what are the different aspects that we're looking at in assessing community risk?
Wow, that's an interesting question, because you have to count in on a lot of data. One of the most I don't know how to say, direct or reliable, I think. Reliable? Is
Sure,
that the
but
word? Okay.
I'm not sure.
One of the okay, one of the most important or our direct information is positivity percent or positivity rate. What does it mean? Positivity rate is the percentage of people that that have an positive test in a group of tasted people. I don't know how to say it. Let me explain. In the case you taste 100 people, if 80 was positive, the community risk of transmission is very high, because 80%, because this rate is 80%. But if you have 10 people tested and only 5 was positive, then the risk of transmission is very low. So that's one form to that's one in context like Latin America or Mexico. It's very difficult to taste a lot of people, huge amounts of people, because the lack of resources it's a huge problem here. So you have to allocate the resources in the symptomatic people only, but maybe you can lose the asymptomatic positive cases, right? So the positivity rate is very, very harmful way to see the community transmission risk. I don't know if I was clear.
No, I do. I think you are you got to the point, right? And I think that was a little bit of a trick question. So let me explain what I mean by that. So I asked you how to assess community risk. I think the first thing to do with a question like that is, well, what community are we talking about? How are we defining community, right? Are we talking
Right.
about,
Mhm.
are we talking about your community that you live in? Are we talking about the community of an old folks home? Are we talking about the community of the nation? Are we talking about a school? Right. So what community, or what community are we talking about? And then when I say risk, when I asked about risk, what risk am I talking about? Am I talking about the risk of catching COVID? Am I talking about the risk of having symptoms of COVID? Am I talking about, the risk of death from COVID?
Yeah.
Right. So those are all different things so you sort of got there. You got to that point, right? So you
Yeah.
but that was a trick question though. So I was ready for that one. So that was loaded. I was waiting for you to work it through. But that would be the way that I would look at a question like that, is to break it down into its components and say, well, what community are we talking about? Are we talking about people over
Yeah.
80? Are we talking about young people? Are we talking about obese people? Are we talking about vaccinated versus unvaccinated people? In terms of community. So there's many factors that describe community and apply to what risks are involved, right? So
Yes, I went to the point of transmission risk,
mhm.
transmissions risk, and yeah.
which is important, right?
Mhm.
So and but you do want to look for opportunities to break down in the same way that when you use jargon, you want to define it. You also want to make sure that as you begin to answer the question, that you understand, the implications of the question that's asked of you, right?
Mhm.
So it works both ways. So when you're speaking, you're using words that the audience might not understand. You have to remember, you got to define them. Like I pointed out, like chronic is a great one, like some people know what chronic means and some people don't. So that's a great one to explain when you use. But then also, if you get a question like that, when people are using terms that are very general, and it's hard to give a specific answer to a question that's so general. So to define what you mean by community, define what you mean by
Yeah,
risk, and you can do
yeah, you're
that.
right.
You can do that in conversation with the person that you're talking to, depending on the setting, right? Or you can define the terms for yourself and explain, well, it depends. You can say, well, it depends on what you mean by community. It depends on what you mean by risk, right? You can just assert yourself like that and define it for them, right? So that's just another way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Let me ask you, I think we got time for one more. This one's great. It covers all the dimensions of all of our previous questions. So you can answer this one in lots of different ways, and you can be as expansive or as brief as you like. How should a person factor personal risk for severe COVID into their decisions? How should a person factor personal risk for severe COVID into their decisions?